April 24, 1969. Deep inside the jungles of Vietnam, an American special operations team is trapped. Machine guns are firing from hidden bunkers. Enemy soldiers are closing in from every direction. One by one, men begin to fall. Then their leader does something almost unbelievable. Instead of retreating, he charges directly into the enemy positions. Moments later, he vanishes. No body, no witnesses, no proof of death. Just a legend. And more than 50 years later, nobody knows exactly what happened to Staff Sergeant Jerry "Mad Dog" Shriver. History is filled with soldiers who became heroes, but very few became myths. Among the secretive ranks of MACV SOG, the United States' most classified military unit during the Vietnam War, one name stood above the rest. His enemies feared him, his men worshipped him. Radio Hanoi placed a bounty on his head, and even today, veterans speak about him as if he were something more than human. This is the story of the warrior who disappeared into the jungle. Jerry Shriver was born in Florida in 1941. Little is known about his childhood, but those who knew him later agreed on one thing: he seemed born for combat. As a young man, Shriver joined the U.S. Army. He became an airborne paratrooper with the legendary 101st Airborne Division. Then he volunteered for something even harder: Special Forces, the Green Berets. The training was brutal. Only a fraction made it through. Shriver did, and when America became deeply involved in Vietnam, he found exactly what he had been searching for: war, not as a duty, not as a job, but as a calling. Most soldiers count the days until they can go home. Jerry Shriver did the opposite, because once he arrived in Vietnam, he never wanted to leave. Shriver arrived in Vietnam in 1966. Tall, lean, cold-eyed, always training, always preparing. Future Medal of Honor. Recipient Jim Fleming described him as the quintessential warrior, not a politician, not a strategist, a fighter. Shriver spent every waking hour studying weapons, terrain, and enemy tactics. When others rested, he trained. When others relaxed, he planned. When others feared combat, he chased it. Soon he joined one of the most secret organizations in American military history, MACV SOG, a unit so secret that many of its missions remained classified for decades. Their operators crossed borders, conducted reconnaissance behind enemy lines, captured intelligence, and fought battles that officially never happened. Only the best were accepted. And among the best stood Jerry Shriver. Vietnam changed men, but it transformed Shriver. His fellow soldiers gave him a nickname, Mad Dog, and the name stuck, because nobody fought quite like him. After finishing dangerous missions, he would often volunteer for more. When granted leave for rest and relaxation, he skipped the vacation and joined additional combat patrols instead. To many soldiers, Vietnam was a nightmare. To Mad Dog, it was home. Soon stories about him began spreading through Special Forces camps. Stories that sounded almost impossible. Stories about a man carrying 5 or 6 pistols at once. Stories about a soldier who preferred revolvers to rifles. Stories about a warrior who seemed completely fearless. Whether every story was true hardly mattered anymore. The legend had begun. But it wasn't his weapons that made him famous. It was something he said during a firefight that would become one of the most legendary quotes in military history. During one operation, Shriver and his team found themselves heavily outnumbered. Enemy forces were closing in. Air support operators asked if he needed extraction. Most soldiers would have accepted immediately. Instead, Shriver replied, "I've got them right where I want them, surrounded from the inside." The quote spread through MACV SOG like wildfire. It perfectly captured who he was. A man who didn't simply tolerate danger, a man who hunted it, and the enemy noticed. Radio Hanoi reportedly placed a bounty of $10,000 on his head, an enormous sum at the time. The communists wanted Mad Dog Shriver dead, very badly, because wherever he appeared, their casualties followed. Despite his reputation as a lone wolf, Shriver wasn't alone. His closest companions weren't American. They were the Montagnards, indigenous tribesmen from Vietnam's highlands, fierce fighters, expert trackers, masters of jungle warfare. They trusted Shriver completely, and he trusted them. Unlike many officers, Shriver lived among his men, ate with them, slept beside them, shared their hardships, even spent much of his own money helping their families. Food, clothing, supplies, whatever they needed. His loyalty earned their loyalty. And in the jungle, loyalty often meant survival. But there was one companion he loved perhaps more than anyone else, a German shepherd named Klaus, a rare soft spot in an otherwise ruthless warrior. And shortly before his final mission, Shriver made a disturbing prediction. He looked at a friend, then pointed to his dog, and spoke words that would haunt everyone who heard them. April 24th, 1969. A MACV SOG force prepared for a raid near one of the most important communist strongholds in South Vietnam. The mission was dangerous from the beginning. Before boarding the helicopter, Shriver turned to a friend. "Take care of my boy." He meant Klaus. It sounded like a goodbye. Soon after landing, disaster struck. Hidden machine gun bunkers erupted with fire. Enemy forces surrounded the team. 6 enemy platoons against a much smaller force. The situation was rapidly collapsing. Then Mad Dog made his decision. Rather than retreat, he attacked. Leading his montagnards forward, he charged directly into enemy fire. Bullets snapped through the trees. Grenades exploded around them. Witnesses watched him run toward the machine gun positions while firing his weapon. Closer, closer, closer. Then he reached the tree line, gathered his men, smiled, nodded, and launched the assault. That was the last confirmed sighting of Jerry Shriver, ever. When the battle ended, there was no body, no prisoner, no evidence, nothing. North Vietnamese broadcasts later claimed they had killed him, but they never produced proof. Recovery teams searched. Nothing. Weeks passed. Still nothing. Months passed. Nothing. The warrior who had survived more than 1,000 days in Vietnam had simply vanished. At 27 years old, Jerry Shriver was officially listed as missing in action. And that's where the mystery remains. Some believe he died in the assault. Others believe his body was never recovered. A few even wondered whether he survived longer than anyone realized. The truth disappeared with him, into the jungle. Years later, the Army officially closed his case. He was posthumously promoted and awarded additional honors. Yet no medal could answer the question everyone still asked. What happened to Mad Dog Shriver? Perhaps that's why his legend survived. Not because of how he lived, not because of how he fought, but because nobody ever saw how his story ended. Some soldiers return home, some become heroes, and a rare few become myths. Jerry Mad Dog Shriver became all three, and somewhere in the shadows of Vietnam's jungles, his final chapter remains unwritten.